I think the single most difficult problem here, I'm going to give you two or three. Number one is what I call severity neglect. Unless you have extensive medical training, you're not used to putting things on a severity continuum. And the idea that a parent should be more cooperative is an extremely valid and good one. But you have to ask, does the parent have the capacity to co-parent? And I find most clinical psychologists and most mental health professionals who are not subspecialists in this area simply do not know how to determine that. And one of the things to look at is the degree of psychopathology. The people who claim PA is not a syndrome will usually say we don't want to pathologize.
Let's stop right here. I think this is a good place to start my introduction. So I do all my videos live and uncut. I started as a boxing journalist here on YouTube. Vlogger, uncut, I cuss. I like to consider myself somewhat of the Howard Stern of boxing. However, I have had another calling. Like I've been thinking for months and months and months that if I don't do this, not only am I doing a disservice to myself, but with the information that I have and all the things that I've learned, I can save a lot of people money, a lot of men, even if there are women who are going through this. I can save a lot of people money and a lot of people a lot of heartache and a lot of pain, especially when it comes to their children. So here on this channel, we just don't cover boxing anymore. And yes, as time goes on, because this is going to be a multi-part series, I'm thinking it's probably going to clock out maybe at about 10 parts. No bullshit. And yes, we're going to cuss. Because I've realized that in order for this to work the best for me and also for you to get the best information to help you in your custody situation or in your situation where you're dealing with what this term is called a parental alienator, or if you're dealing with what is called a vindictive litigant, and we're going to get and go over all of these terms. And then when you're dealing with someone, most importantly, just to keep it cut and dry, someone who is lying and using the system and their own anger and hate and the fact that they're not doing well in life because you're not with them or for whatever reason, and they're weaponizing your child. I'm here to help. I'm here to save you some money. Not only that, this has got to stop because I am what is it? I'm a full-blown example of how the courts are for the women, especially if you have a past criminal history, and especially if you have a past mental health history. So once again, I'm going to be transparent because people are going to ask me, well, what did you do wrong? How come you don't have your child and you've been going to court for over 1,600 days? Yes. I first filed for custody on November the 26th of 2014. It is now April the 21st, 2019. 8:41 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I forgot I got a clock up there. So you're going to see some cuts in this video. This first part is going to be about 20 minutes long. I'm going to give you an intro, but first you got to listen to Dr. Steve Miller here, and we're going to talk about likely the number one reason, especially if you have a past criminal record or if you just got a crazy baby mom and she got some dirt on you and she's using it in the family court system against you to keep your child away. That's called parental alienation. You need to know your terms. We're going to talk about it. And at the end of the video, I'm going to make sure I tell you the first things to do to make sure you get a hold of your custody case. I'm going to tell you, some steps to make sure you save money. I'm going to tell you exactly when you need to get a lawyer. We're going to talk. So I go by TstreeT Controversy. I call my show TstreeT Controversy Live, but in this case, it's called TstreeT Uncut. I'm not going to be on here suit and tie. I'm here to talk to the real people, the ones who have been depressed, the ones who now suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, from going to court, all these different court dates, and you're not being heard, you're broke, you're paying child support, still not able to see your child, and wait till I get to the segment on child support. Whew. We got a lot to talk about. So please subscribe. I am working on a website. It's called Fight for Your Child. And it's not going to be as in-depth as my boxing website, but it will have help and make sure that you guys get everything you need. I'm trying to launch it in June. I have a PFA hearing, a false restraining order, protection from abuse, hearing April the 25th, just a few days from now. So I'm going to make sure that I do a stream or a video, not a stream, a video to give you an update and tell you how that ties in to all of this. But in the meantime, I need you to listen. And now that you know what the term parental alienation is, that's when, I guess we need to go here too. Let's talk about it so you can have a better understanding on what he's talking about. And then I'm going to dumb it down to you. So parental alienation and disparagement. Parent to child comments that insult, scorn, or otherwise speak negatively about to other parents. So say, for example, you got a 4-year-old, 5-year-old. The children's minds are like a sponge. Say, for example, it's the mother that misses a visit or doesn't bring you to see the child or doesn't bring the child to see you. But then she says to the child, oh, look, your father doesn't want to see you. Look. Or she's like doing stuff like subliminally, but how can I say, like around the child, having conversations with other family members about like, yeah, he don't want to see the child and all that, knowing that it's her fault. Allowing others generally plan to make disparaging comments about the other parent in the child's presence, kind of what I was just talking about right there. Entrenching the child into divorce or custody case. This happens by alienating parents, sharing details, often distorted or false one, of the child's custody case, the parents' respective positions and statements in a divorce. The purpose of the entrenchment is to influence the child against the other parent, portraying the one parent that the alienating parent is the good parent and the other is the bad. So to break that down, basically saying, look, your father is divorcing me or your mother's divorcing me. Now, even though I'm going to talk from a man's perspective, women, y'all can just switch this around to the other parent. I don't know about the divorce proceedings or anything like that. Now, once again, I am going to give you my personal story of how I'm involved in this 1,600 plus day custody battle and how my case is now considered like severe, like going to world news severe. I've been doing my best to keep like my family and my friends and my colleagues of, I don't want to be, I would rather do this. I don't want to be picketing and, having to do interviews on TV. I don't want to go through it. But however, if I have to do that for my child, then I'm going to have to, because we'll get back to this. Let's listen in. Let's start over again. So you know what parental alienation is. So when he says PA, he's talking about parental alienation. And what he's talking about overall is how the courts, failed to spot early on parental alienation, and how it's not, even though this is from 2014, how basically it's not, I don't know, man. I don't know. This looks older than 2014. I wonder if this is one of those alternate date, whatever, but we'll talk about it. But listen in. He's going to explain it to you. He's going to talk for about 2 minutes.
2 or 3. Number one is what I call severity neglect. Unless you have extensive medical training, you're not used to putting things on a severity continuum. And the idea that a parent should be more cooperative is an extremely valid and good one. But
yeah, so he's basically saying that, it looks all good from the beginning. Oh, yeah, well, we're going to get these parents to work together. Oh, look, let's put this court order out there, and, they're going to follow it.
You have to ask, does the parent have the capacity to co-parent? And I find most clinical psychologists and most mental health professionals who are not subspecialists in this area simply do not know how to determine that. And one of the things to look at is the degree of psychopathology. The people who claim PA is not a syndrome will usually say we don't want to pathologize it. But the severe cases are fundamentally different than moderate cases. In a moderate case, it is very reasonable to try to educate the parent to be more cooperative. But in a severe case, where you have what one expert's called an obsessed alienator, that person with almost 100% certainty has a severe personality disorder. Normal people just don't do that to their children. And
okay, now let's stop right there to explain what he's talking about. So he's saying in a normal case, or just like a case of, let's say, for example, a court order's put out. The judge says, my first court order was, okay, the judge says, you get to see your child every other Sunday from 12 to 2. All right. And then the mother violates that one order and say, no, I don't want to let him see the child because blah, blah, blah. I don't want to go down there. Which we're going to get to later on, you go back to court for which you file contempt. And then the judge orders the mother, say, hey, you follow this order and you go to some type of therapy, parenting therapy. And then the situation is solved. And then the parent says, oh, shit, they trying to take me to jail, or they trying to take me, or, the judge says I got to do this. All right, it's not worth it. I'm going to let him see his child. But then you have severe cases in which I'm going through which he's going to talk about. The alienating parent does not have the capacity, or may not have the capacity, or if it's that severe, you have to question if they have the capacity to co-parent, and why are they keeping the child away from the other parent. There are some parents, alienating parents, that treat the other parent as if seeing the child is a privilege. As if it's like, no, you fold to my demands and you get to see your kid. You have to question, why are they keeping their child, the child, away from the other parent? No matter what your issues are in life, your goals are to make sure that your children have a better life than you did. And it's supposed to continue, or at least that's my theory. My child, I want to make, she's already in a position where she has enough that I've made the sacrifices that she has enough foundation to be able to have the better childhood, if the mother allows, than I've had, but also to be able to build off and make sure her children, my grandchildren. Does the alienating parents, they are too selfish to think that far ahead. They're more worried about not only digging themselves, not only keeping the lies going, because at that point in time, if it's that severe, then their personal life is involved. And, if the other parent who's been alienated for so long actually gets custody, or gets some custody, then that parent who's been alienating and lying to likely everybody in that circle on that side of the family, she's got some explaining, or he's got some explaining to do. So the reason why I'm focusing on this right here is because this right here is the genesis of how parental alienation gets out of control. And the courts, through lack of due process and lack of really understanding how parental alienation starts, and spotting those those first beginning red flags. My case should not have been going on for 1,600 days. And I'm going to, it's not enough time. This is the introduction videos, part 1. So in part 2, in part 2, I got my little notes here. In part 2, I got to tell you the story. So therefore, you'll be able to determine, okay, this is why you're in that situation. But the transparency part is to help you understand how to handle your case and to make sure it don't get to no 1,600 days. So I'm confident and I'm comfortable now because I've been through the worst of the worst in my custody battle. I was in a 19-day coma. I was in the ER from 2015 to 2018 up into the coma 75 times. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? It is true that stress can kill you. And, the saying is, or the way it is if a woman is crying in the streets and, oh, my God, they took my baby. Oh, Lord. Everybody's like, oh, my God, my heart bleeds for her. But let you be a 6'3", 270 plus pound man. And, with a somewhat intimidating presence, you can't get loud. You can't show no emotion. Or they can be, oh, my God, he's crazy. He can't be around his kids. You can't show no emotion. That's how fucked up the system is. You got to always keep your cool, even though you're being mentally abused and legally abused by the alienating parent. I literally have post-traumatic stress disorder. Every time I have to go to a hearing, sometimes I would sit anywhere I'm at, I'll catch myself, or I have to go to visitation because I have to see my daughter under supervised visitations, even though I'm a certified nursing assistant, a web developer, a YouTube. You got to hear the story, but that's the next video. Like, I feel like I'm getting ready to collapse. My heart beats so fast. I keep logs via my Samsung watch of my heart rate. I have some like real bad panic attacks. And it's only when I have to go to a hearing or when the mail comes, I'm scared that there's going to be some more court papers, or, I can't leave the house certain times of the day, because she can file false charges, she's shown. But we got to get to the origin story. But let's go back to this, because I wanted to make sure we get the foundation in this video of parental alienation, because then we got to talk about how if you're dealing with a sociopath or a narcissistic sociopath who is using parental alienation. It's a dark, 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 dark. Whew. So this is only the beginning. We're going to be documenting the rest of my case. My custody trial is November the 25th. We go to court for contempt against her, where justice will likely be served July the 8th. But in the meantime, my case is so severe that the mother is likely going to either flee because she does not want me to see my child in any way, shape, or form, or I'm telling you right now, I'm not suicidal. If something happens to me, it's her. Not even a joke. But I've become so numb to all this because the courts don't listen to me. Imagine going to court 70 plus times. No, about 80 now. 80 plus hearings. From criminal, when she tried to file false charges against me. Well, we'll save that for part 2. Let's go back, listen to this, and I'm going to let it play through in its entirety for about 5 minutes so you can get the gist of what parental alienation is. And then you have a better understanding on if you're going through it or not. And then I'm going to give you just one big tip, since we don't have too much time in the video, and I'll save the rest for the next video, is to make sure you get a hold of your custody case and to make sure that you save some money. Because they're trying to drain you. Right here. So right here.
I'm going to give you 2 or 3. Number 1 is what I call severity neglect. Unless you have extensive medical training, you're not used to putting things on a severity continuum. And the idea that a parent should be more cooperative is an extremely valid and good one. But you have to ask, does the parent have the capacity to co-parent? And I find most clinical psychologists and most mental health professionals who are not subspecialists in this area simply do not know how to determine that. And one of the things to look at is the degree of psychopathology. The people who claim PA is not a syndrome will usually say we don't want to pathologize it. But the severe cases are fundamentally different than moderate cases. In a moderate case, it is very reasonable to try to educate the parent to be more cooperative. But in a severe case, where you have what one expert called an obsessed alienator, that person with almost 100% certainty has a severe personality disorder. Normal people just don't do that to their children. And one clue would be that they block access for years on end for trivial, frivolous reasons that you would never block access to your children for. Another indication or indicator would be the repeated breaching of court orders, which again a normal person would never do. So just to give you a glimpse of the pattern, when you see excuses like they don't like him, they don't want to see him, and I'm not going to force them, you should sit bolt upright in your chair. And when that's the investigation part proves that to be the case, and then the targeted parent has not seen the children for years on end, if not months, and then there's repeated violations of clear-cut court orders, Mr. Jones, if you do this again, and he keeps doing it. Those folks are delusional. The type of personality disorder that they have, I know at least 1 or 2 of you, I think it's 2 of you are clinical psychologists. I have never seen such a severe case where there wasn't what we would call a cluster B disorder, which includes 4 different things. That is almost 100% sensitive and 100% specific. Now, to follow up here, to move on, I should say, I think that part of the solution would be training. As I said, I'm a medical educator. I think if we got the GALs together, if you had the judges You have their conference, and the mental health professionals have their conference, and maybe even have some cross-training. I think a lot of these problems would evaporate. Nobody who's a real expert disputes that it exists. No one disputes that you can identify it using about 10 or 12 different indicators. No one disputes that there's a huge difference between the moderate alienating parent and the severe one, and that the severe one almost always is delusional. He or she truly believes that they're protecting the child from some horrible guy. It's a true paranoid delusion. If that's what you're dealing with, I defy you to find a clinical psychologist who thinks that they can work with someone who's got a sociopathic personality disorder with paranoid delusions and, fixed paranoid ideas and so forth. So I think training would be my second solution.
Yeah. And understanding like the wording and the terms is very important. Even if you're from the hood, I understand, like my job is to educate you. There's a lot of men who are giving up on their children because they just don't know what to do. And they hear the court, they're just going to let the woman win anyway. Yo, men are breaking and broken out here. I've talked to them. You know what it's like to be crying on the phone with another grown-ass man? And y'all got to tell, like, no, dog, you can do it. Like, listen, I know you crying, I'm crying too. Like, this shit's crap. Great, cry now. I got interviews that I've been doing with fathers who have lost their children, who have lost their jobs, who have been sent to jail. And they're called criminals, they're called crazy, but I strongly feel that those are the men like myself, are the ones that are the strongest for their children, especially their daughters, because we have this hard experience of life. I'm not ashamed to say I've been to jail for shit I did and shit I did not do. This is not the first time a woman made some shit up on me. So for me to be dealing with this as an entrepreneur, as a web developer, as a guy who has thousands of people watching his videos, I can't see my daughter here today on Easter. Not because of anything I've done, not because of anything my dying father, terminally ill with 1 foot, has done. Not because of my 2 grandparents who died before meeting my granddaughter, my aunt, my friends. The fact that anytime, because of these loopholes that she is, from what I've been seeing, a sociopath, or what I've been researching, and one thing I don't respect and I despise is people who like to diagnose without proper credentials. But you can say, well, you do have characteristics of this. From you can't make an assumption from seeing somebody's video. You can't make an assumption off of somebody's life from hearing our rap songs. If that's the case, then every rapper who rapped about murder and, tying up people and Eminem, all the crazy shit, then people would never have custody of their kids if you judge them just by off of what you see. But in the case of like this court system, from what I've seen and the lack of due process in my case in particular, it almost makes me wonder, like, do they want me to quit, or do they want fathers to quit in general? Why do they make it so hard for fathers to see their children? Why is it that fathers are stripped from their rights of their children? Like the rights are given to the mother straight off the bat. And as a father, you have to fight to get the rights or to get some type of say. And it's expensive. So let's talk about saving money. First, you got to get all your paperwork. The first thing I'm going to tell you is you got to know what your docket history is. You got to make sure. Now, this is for somebody who, let's say, for example, you tired of it. You never filed no papers. There's no existing order, meaning there's no custody order right now. Y'all never been to court. You wanted to end? Go to your family court. You got to go stand in line. You're going to be down there for a while. First thing you want to do is get your docket history. Use your phone. Use Google. You got these high tech, y'all got iPhones. Get on there, research what is parent alienation. Every time you see a term, just Google it. Look it up. If you know in your heart that you're doing the right thing and you're not seeing your child because the mother, for whatever reason, you're not doing nothing wrong. She is. Don't let her get the upper hand. Go to your family court. Every clerk at family court should know the term docket history. If they try to act dumb, then just be like, okay, well, I want to see the history of all my court dates. Now, if you have none, then what you want to do is you want to modify, you want to file for custody. Because if there's no existing order, if y'all never been to court before, you're not seeing your child, go to court and say, you want to file for custody. Go for the gusto, go for full custody. 9 times out of 10, they're going to ride with the mother anyway and give you, joint or 50. And if she's not crazy, then she'll, say, oh shit, he took me to court 50-50. He wants to see his child. He's serious. File for custody first. If there's an existing court order, if there's a court order and the judge said you're supposed to see your child such and such, and the mom not coming, you paying child support, go file contempt. It's just like filing, it's the same likely paperwork as filing custody. Do not hire a lawyer to do that stuff for you. Get your own paperwork. It's going to save you $200+, maybe more. Don't go into no lawyer's office and say, a family law, and say, and they'll ask you, what's going on with your case? And you say, well, I don't know, my baby mom. You got too much knowledge at your hands and your child is worth it. If there's no order, once again, file. For example, here, I'll pull something up for you. File for custody, PA. Now here, right here, there's a form for PA. Just put it in your state. Right here, there are directions. They tell you what they are, shared. Here's go full screen. These documents are ready and available for you. Screenshot them on your phone and read them. This is Philadelphia. To give you directions, and then, well, this is not the form. This is the just directions. Where's the form? Complaint for custody. Let's see. Is this it? No, that's not it. It's usually about 6 or so pages. And they're going to ask you, why, and, you're going to, give an example. Yeah, here it is. This is literally the form. I mean, some forms, they look like, all of them pretty much look like this, but they vary from state to state in format. Mother's name, who she living with, anybody involved. They're going to ask you at the bottom to give a brief history of the case. You file this, wait for your court date. Now, that's just part one. Now, a lawyer will charge you to do this. A lawyer will charge you to do this when you could do this yourself. Also, it's best to save more time is to have these forms yourself from offline instead of going down to your family courthouse to pick them up. You're saving transportation time. A lot of these forms, majority of them, you got to look for some of them. You can find them online. It's best to go into your lawyer's office, especially before you get one armed with knowledge. Because if not, they're like, cha-ching. The average retainer is about $3,000 on to keep a lawyer. On the low end is $1,500. We're going to get to that stuff later on. So if you're interested in any help or any more, little tips and everything like that, I'm here to help. Even though, I do have a whole career and other job titles, if I can get back to you on your emails and everything, I'm going to get back to you. So in part 2, which I'm going to upload probably in a couple of days before I go to court, because I want to do one after the court date to give you the results of the PFA hearing, because in the next episode, we got to talk about the PFA, right? Before it gets thrown out. So I am TstreeT Controversy. This is TstreeT Controversy Live. I am a newfound fight for your child, father's rights activist now, advocate from a hard experience. And a 30-minute video that I'm approaching right now, I'm like, I can't put in the word. Like it's not enough time to tell you the story. This woman is nuts. But that's, we're going to talk about that later. I'm TstreeT Controversy. This is TstreeT Controversy Live. Please subscribe.